The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing, they're easy to toss in my bag on the go, plus they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA and FSA, eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
You should stop thinking of this as like a surprise just because, we're consistently winning. We're consistently in every game. If it's, it doesn't matter what team it is, we're not going to overlook them. We're going to go out there and we're going to just try and play our ball. I think those days are kind of over.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Sunday night, June 14th, 2026. As we record this episode, that was Colson Montgomery you heard before the intro as he talked post-game after the Chicago White Sox won on Sunday, beating the Los Angeles Dodgers 6-4, and the White Sox won 2 out of 3 against the reigning champions. Added up, and the White Sox went 4-1 this week against the two best teams in Major League Baseball, and they are 5-3 in this 12-game gauntlet that's now become 11 games because of Mother Nature, unless you want to add the fact that the White Sox will be facing Tarek Skubal on Friday when they visit Detroit. That's still going to be part of that gauntlet for the White Sox. Regardless, though, the Chicago White Sox are back in first place. They are 38-32. Colson Montgomery says this isn't a surprise to at least the team, but on a national level, many are still catching up to how well this White Sox team has been playing in 2026. On this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast, we'll be recapping the weekend series win against the Dodgers. Are we overlooking Chase Meidroth? Seranthony Dominguez wants all the save attempts. Is that a good idea? Also preview the upcoming series as the White Sox head to the Bronx to face the mighty New York Yankees. And we'll take a look around Major League Baseball at the end of the show. Joining me are Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And gentlemen, what a week for the Chicago White Sox. And start off with this tweet that we got from one of our supporters on Sox Machine, goes by Hot Dog Larry to hide his true identity in real life. But Hot Dog Larry tweeted us this on Sunday. It's moments like this when I can't wait for the Sox Machine podcast to hear the justifiably pessimistic Jim Margulis and James Fegan confront the fact this young White Sox squad has arrived slightly ahead of schedule. This is for real, isn't it, Josh? Who's got a spare starter or two? And I share this tweet to start the show, James, because the excitement is real. Been to all 3 games this weekend between the White Sox and Dodgers. 3 sellouts. White Sox fans are buying more and more into this team. And after they go 4-1 against the Braves and Dodgers, there's really not much that's slowing down the excitement when it comes to the Chicago White Sox. So in this homestand, what did you learn about this team?
Well, I don't want to be called to the mat by Hot Dog Larry and fail to respond in some way. What I learned, I mean, you certainly saw things that they've been doing play out against like better competition in a way that we're just more got validated rather than like you saw it in a way you never saw before. Like they've come back in a lot of games. They've had a lot of spurts of home runs, certainly in the way they won on Sunday. Like that certainly wasn't the first time we saw like their lineup kind of catch on fire, and even kind of the way Colson described it post game, where and I don't know if he took it exactly the way I meant it, but like he gave a good answer anyway, which was like, if this was a bad atmosphere, you'd have gone through Yamamoto and then you'd go through Sheehan and be like, oh, it's happening again, and they just can't get to the starter, and this is going to stretch on. They're trying to be aggressive and they're getting a lot of quick outs and economical innings. But the way Colson was saying is like, yeah, like our scouting report said that he would throw a changeup. Because he's a righty and he has a prominent changeup, and we're a lefty heavy lineup, and we just didn't see it. They kind of pivoted away from us. And so it was just kind of figuring that out. And you saw them like literally do it over the third time through the order against them. And I think they've been pretty good about, even if the first one trip to the order doesn't go well, it's just kind of an offense that learns and improves over the course of games. And certainly has power, and certainly that power is like played up against like good pitching staffs. It's more like maybe a durability of their way to piece it together. The pessimistic angle for what this team would be is that if we start grading them like against other contenders, which certainly I think is valid to do when one, they're in first place, and two, we're watching them play other contenders, and our topic of like, can they really like bop with these guys is on our mind, is that their pitching looks light. Certainly in terms of like mapping out like what their rotational playoff series would be, or what their repeatable path to victory multiple times through a playoff series would be, assuming that you can't press the Sean Newcomb 7 outs button or the Grant Taylor 7 outs button like over and over again in the playoffs.
Why not?
At least as much. They look like starting wise, but to see a game like Sunday, or even just see Anthony Kay seeming like be on the verge of this disaster inning, but still scrap out like a very winnable effort from it. I think it showed more durability to their pitching operation, even as we look at them right now, and they're literally a starter short, and you're opening for Fetty pretty regularly if you're facing a lefty-handy opposing offense, and it's not beyond the realm of consideration for Sean Burke, or the reverse for Anthony Kay. It doesn't seem like they have like this fortified rotation, but it certainly, you saw them kind of scrap their way out of it against some really good lineups. Obviously banged up lineups for Atlanta and the Dodgers in their own way, but you can say that for the Sox, and it's kind of an even playing ground. And, certainly other teams didn't have an easy time with them beyond, maybe the best pitcher, certainly the best command artist is the way they described it, in the league. So I don't know if you found out new things, but you certainly had this validity. And as far as like seeing that this team has arrived or good, like, they've been a team with a winning record and a positive run differential over a pretty meaningful sample for a couple weeks now. So I have concerns about, like, for one, the very real possibility, like, when they are in the playoffs, not if as much. I mean, yes, it's still if, but like, it's no longer like the unrealistic dream scenario. It's more like something they need to consciously plan for. There's question marks, but as far as like, are they legit? Do they have a real chance to make the playoffs and like can be for this division? I think it's pretty obvious. Like, we're over 70 games at this point, and they're right in it, and all their statistical indicators say like this is just a good offensive team that is in contention. So I think they're probably the best offense in the division going away. So I think that's pretty solidified at this point.
Yeah, I think the thing that I learned, to kind of spin it to be, shockingly, out of us three, the most optimistic, according to
I haven't even said anything yet, so you don't know what I'm going to say.
That's true. James, you bring up valid points. And when looking at the American League right now, really the only team that I think has starting pitching that you would want for the postseason is the Yankees, unless the Toronto Blue Jays suddenly like wake up and they make a run, and the Seattle Mariners. I think Tampa Bay would have questions. I agree with Chris Getz. It's the White Sox and everybody else that has postseason dreams that will need to find pitching before the August 3rd trade deadline. But from my point of view this week, this offense has got the juice, James. Like, I've been asking for ball and air offense for years, Jim. And this is what I'm watching. And it's without Munetaka Murakami, James. The White Sox are still hitting home runs. Sam Antonacci tied the game on an 0-2 inside fastball. And that is a very tough pitch.
The last challenge of the game.
That's a good point. Yeah, burned the last challenge and then proceeded to hit the game-tying home run. But when you rewatch that home run, that is an incredibly tough pitch to hit. Antonacci's got more power than a lot of people think. Colson seems to be taking better swings. We know what kind of power he's got. But then Chase Meidroth goes Oppo Taco. I know it goes barely over the wall, but none of us have ever thought that Chase Meidroth can hit a home run opposite field. So even if it is the Braves and the Dodgers, I think this week the White Sox showed, especially at home, their offense is very dangerous because they put the ball in air and they can blitz you and they can put up these big innings. So that's the thing that I learned, that they can still be able to do this without Murakami.
I guess like the way I would typify it is I'm no longer saying like their pitching is light in terms of they're not legitimate, they're going to fall apart any second. Their pitching is light is like that is what they need to do with the trade deadline, which is now just unambiguously adding. There's obviously going to be limits. There's obviously not the expectation they're going to like fence their prospects for it and, you know, push all the resources in like this is a winner go home type of year. But like it's gone from like, I don't know how excited I should get, they really don't have the pitching this last, towards like, well, that's where your shopping list is going to be, you know, you playoff contender, they've made that, I feel like, you know, unambiguous.
What fun is this, Jim? Now we have to talk about how can the White Sox add to get themselves to make a postseason run and maybe make the World Series in 2026. What a very fun surprise this season has been. And I wonder, with each passing fortnight, the bar continues to rise this season when it comes to expectations. After this week, like, one, what did you learn from the Braves and Dodgers series? And two, where do we set the expectations now after 70 games?
Well, a question for you. I was in town for an unrelated reason, so I didn't go to the games, but I was at Oak Brook. And I saw a lot of Dodgers jerseys, a lot of Ohtani jerseys. And so I was wondering, when I heard sellouts, you know, what was the balance of the crowd? Was it half and half? What was the sound going to be like? And it sounded pretty White Sox forward, I would say, when it came to, you know, who sometimes there have been times in the past where you didn't know who the home team was based on the reaction, especially like later in games when maybe some of the home crowd had thinned out. But it sounded, despite a sellout, despite the Dodgers bringing some fans themselves, pretty White Sox heavy still. So how was it like in the stadium?
So I think down the first baseline, James, I would say from that side of the stadium, 50-50, but 500 level bleachers, I would say very dominant White Sox, like 70-30 at best. 30% at best for Dodgers fans. I was surprised how many came out from LA, which was really cool. But this
was a lot of
like
Chicago, LA fans are
sure
the typical front runners.
Yeah, I did like Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah,
that's sort of like the international brand sort of fan. Like, I think it wasn't out of step with just like any. Like when I was stringing for AP, like, and going to a Bulls game where like the Lakers were playing, and it was like clearly a Bulls crowd, but it's just like a meaningful pocket of just like this, you know, huge brand team is there. It felt more like that rather than like some poor, weak team that barely deserves to have a franchise, you know, being invaded by some superior being. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like a home game against, you know, the Dodgers, a big team, like the way like in a winning season, like any home game against the Yankees would be like.
That's a good point.
Aaron Judge hits a huge missile, like there's going to be a substantial amount of people like either just outright cheering or going ooh ah, like that. That's the kind of like the response that Shohei Ohtani gets, I feel like, in every ballpark, and it didn't feel out of step with that.
Cool. Okay, so there's that. That answers my question in terms of my curiosity. I would say what I learned is, or what the sense I'm getting is, this feels very much like a Rays team, in that you're seeing the response from like the Braves and from the Dodgers, their media or their fans, their social media presence saying, you know, the White Sox aren't bad, or like they're feisty. You know, that's the kind of like the word they've been using, feisty. But now they're saying like they're better than people say. And when you look at the lineup and the lack of name brand talent, I mean, the Rays have that, and just guys they've developed that you don't know yet. guys they picked off from other teams and have figured out how to get them working. And then sometimes a blue chip prospect here and there, and sometimes just very modular lineups, lefty versus righties and righties versus lefties looking very different, whether it's different orders or different players playing entirely and a lot of pinch hitting. So you have that element of an offense that's better than the names would make it look. And I think you look up and down the lineup and the WRC plus numbers, and aside from catcher, you're seeing pretty balanced numbers, like steady triple digits up and down the lineup, which I think is what you want from this sort of order where it's you're not going to maybe have especially Murakami out like star production. Then if you don't have like the guy challenging like a 200 OPS plus or whatever, then you want to have like very few double digit ones, or at least very few that start with an 8, like 90s and above. That means that lineup functions. And even if you don't have the killer presence in the lineup, you have a lineup that can create rallies from anywhere and any inning. And so that's kind of what you want. So there's that. I think there's also the element that the Rays sometimes have of making up pitching as they go along and getting better results than you think based on openers and having guys go through the lineup twice, being very reliant on anonymous relievers. And then they get to the postseason, and sometimes you see that approach wear out, especially if you need guys going multiple innings out of the bullpen for 2 or 3 or 4 times in a series. That's when you see the returns diminish, and like everybody that is Rays, either rooting for the Rays or like sympathetic towards the Rays, facing a bigger market team saying, this is where they need a horse. So I think that's kind of where I'm at with the White Sox right now, and that the lineup functions. Even you can take some pieces out and still functions, which I think is very Rays like. And then, the lineup the pitching is creative, which is, I think, ultimately a compliment, but a little bit of a backhanded compliment in the sense of like, oh, you're making it work, huh? Getting by. What's August going to look like? That question's around the corner. It's always looming. The Rays tend to outrun it, at least until the postseason. And then you get into weird postseason luck and such, but that's where I think I'm at right now, which I think is ultimately a good thing, especially for a team that just needs to get to the postseason. The White Sox need to win a division. They need to win a postseason or get to a postseason in order just to, validate what they've been doing so far. They don't need to think about like October yet or whether their stuff works in the postseason. They just need to get there. So ultimately a very, very good thing.
So we're in agreement that the offense and let's just say the position player front, the White Sox are strong enough to be considered a contender or maybe now the new favorite to win the American League Central with some of the recent injury news that hit the division this weekend as well.
I think with Jose Ramirez out and Chase DeLauder out, like especially Hammett injury, it's a direct hit. Just like the White Sox losing Murakami was a direct hit, except when it comes to hand injuries, sometimes those can linger in a way that you hope hamstring doesn't. Maybe hamstrings can be re-aggravated, whereas like if somebody comes back from a ham and it's like everything's healed, then that person's going to be in the lineup. So you can see it going either way. But yeah, it is their entire identity offensively has been Jose Ramirez and friends. And so I'm not counting them out. They're still good when it comes to run prevention. Sure. Still great when it comes to sourcing pitchers. And again, the lineup modularity that, usually allows them to score 3 or 4 runs a game. And oftentimes their pitching and defense that works out. But, it's kind of uncharted territory in terms of him missing a huge chunk of time when they have a lot of rookie talent and a lot of, maybe the proven running mate isn't there as we've seen in previous seasons. So, I think top to bottom in terms of power, they would seem to be the best, and just a matter of, you get into the thing of like Colson Montgomery staying healthy or your rookies continuing to produce, but that's kind of speculative at this point to where, every team has those questions that the White Sox have.
Sure. Well, it's great that we can now kind of focus on maybe we have to create the Sox Machine Midseason Plan Project for everybody to come up with ideas of what you would be willing to trade for in acquiring a starting pitcher. If you listen to our previous podcast episode with our friend Courtney Finicum, she mentioned Reed Detmers. It's always tough to tell what the Angels are ever doing, but maybe that's what we have to run as an exercise in Sox Machine. So let us know on the Sox Machine post on our website, soxmachine.com, in the comment section, some starting pitching targets that you'd go after or want the White Sox to go after.
I've had in mind like the White Sox requiring Adrian Hauser just to see if they can get him working again. And then just, they send like Duncan Davitt and Ben Peoples over just to do like a return. I will say when it comes to, things we haven't done before, Midseason Plan Project, let people behind the curtain. We've had conversations here about the White Sox are contending. What do we do travel wise? How do we plan for a pennant race and, covering the team in August and September, and then like the postseason and short notice, travel plans to cities and hotels. So, keep subscribing because, the travel is going to be, if this continues, the travel will be more and also shorter notice and more expensive. So we will need your travel, your subscription dollars for travel. Anybody who wants to sponsor road trips, reach out to us. Be happy to plaster your name and business anywhere. We are open for business here to make this happen because we do not have a playbook for this kind of season, and we don't want it to show.
Everybody is learning at the same time. Us, the actual White Sox. I'm not sure Chris Getz was ever imagining this season going this well, James.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal Sox Machine experience, I believe, is having 2 or 3 accounts. I think that really improves the user experience for my place. Yeah, I think they're a little like they certainly don't. They don't want to be like they don't want to come off as saying like, well, we don't believe this is sustainable, because I don't think that's how they feel. But they're certainly not like, yeah, we told all of you, this is how it's going to go. Like. No one was, I think everyone, like, I think we had this conversation about Tristan Peters like last time. It wasn't like, hey, here's our full-time center fielder you'll all see type of message in spring training, but like, hey, this is someone who has some interesting elements of the game that we like in our projection program. We love good swing decisions and contact, and let's see what we can do. And, he kind of popped, and I think they have a lot of cases like that. So they were probably expecting, especially like Davis Martin is like overperforming what they expected, like as something that they said outright. And, they probably had different shapes for how this roster would look. I mean, and I remember in spring training that, they were putting up like new artwork in the hallways that they wanted to like represent the current roster. And like one of the big photos they had was like Jonathan Gannon. Cause that was, something that seemed like he could grab a rotation spot back then that now is not part of the mix, or Shane Smith. Like, I think a lot of like, even if they expected something good, it would take a different shape. So there's tons of surprise all over kind of the roster for how things have clicked or how things have worked. But it's more just like a state of like open-mindedness. Like even Jacob Gonzalez, like as much, I've written about it now, like Keith Law has written about in The Athletic, like as much work as you see going into that project, that was just another burner that was going, and they hope to see results of it, but it wasn't like something they were touting, like the roster is built around that. So I think it's more a healthy approach of like, let's just try to make as many things better as we can. And the results have shaken out to this, rather than, hey, they expected to be, trading for pitching at the deadline the way they are. So ideally it's caught them by surprise in a good way, because they were too busy just trying to like create good, player improvement projects across the organization, and enough of them popped at once that they're in this spot.
If your business runs on 5 different apps, 12 browser tabs, and 1 spreadsheet that everyone's afraid to touch, it's probably time for Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that connects every part of your business into one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So instead of wasting time switching between disconnected systems, your entire business works together in real time. Your team moves faster, your data stays accurate, and you can actually focus on growing your business. Let one unified system run your entire business. From the first opportunity to the final payment, everything works together in one place. Whether you're a small business or managing a large operation, Odoo gives you one flexible platform built to grow with you. Learn more at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing, they're easy to toss in my bag on the go, plus they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA and FSA, eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
One of the favorite features that we posted recently on Sox Machine is James getting a chance to chat with Ryan Fuller and White Sox hitting coach Derek Showman. We'll have a video on our YouTube channel of an interview with Derek Showman that you can watch this week on youtube.com/Sox Machine. So if you love to get in the nitty gritty and understand the offensive philosophy of the Chicago White Sox, and these are the 3 words that I wrote down on a post-it note, and this will even help me in the future as long as this coaching staff and Ryan Fuller still with the Chicago White Sox. Decisions, contact, and damage, James. And decisions, your swing decisions, your approach at the plate. Why are we swinging at this pitch? Your ace swing. How do we get this to focus so we can do the most damage? And then, of course, contact. Can we hit the high fastball? If they're busting us at 2-seamers, can we adjust our swing to hit those? It was very insightful, but when you're in the press box, especially with a bunch of folks from LA that have covered now back-to-back World Series champions, are the White Sox catching opponents and other people off guard by just how effective they have been offensively?
I don't know if off guard's exactly the way I would put it, because I think they're proving themselves to teams, but I wouldn't try to throw at them the idea that they didn't take the Sox seriously in some way. Like, even Yamamoto's game, they were talking about how much he just worked the corners relentlessly. Like, nibbling is only a criticism if you can't do it, but he did for a long time. Like, they were saying, it really wasn't until later innings that he got kind of more aggressive in the zone, because he had been able to operate in a way where they weren't eliminating any of his pitches as options, and he realized he could kind of use a lot of different shapes, because they hadn't been able to. He had been commanding everything so well that there was no pitch shape that they could kind of eliminate. He can't locate that and zero in on anything, so he's able to kind of play around the heart of the zone a bit more. But I think their approach throughout the series, from really them and the Braves, both really acknowledge that there was a fair amount of power that they'd be cognizant of. I think the sample is pretty established, and certainly he wasn't in a great shape at the time they traded him, but Miguel Vargas isn't someone that the Dodgers don't realize was talented. He was very lauded prospect in their organization. So I think if it's a way to kind of to get me to say something super positive about them and beat their chest is I think they just were really good this weekend. I don't think it was taking these teams by surprise or some way where they got mollywopped because they're totally unprepared for the level of power they had. I think they're just kind of a tough lineup to deal with at this point. They got a decent amount of diversity that they can attack you in different ways, or Sunday is what I keep coming back to, but they were kind of in a pickle of Emmett Sheehan facing the lineup a third time through, and how much do you want him to get in trouble versus how much you want to get length out of him. And the way the Dodgers are operating, especially now, especially what success they've had, it's all towards sustainable usage to get them to the playoffs in a good spot, healthy. They're not going to manage a game in June super strictly, oh, we can't let Emmett Sheehan get their third time to the order because he's vulnerable then. It's we want to get 6 innings so we don't tax our bullpen too much, so we don't have these usage spikes in here, because they're going to be in the playoffs. They don't need to put anyone at risk by managing the rubber match of the series against the Sox super hard. But you have Sheen in there, you have lefty Jack Dreyer waiting. You kind of wind up letting Sheehan stay in because you can't bring in Jack Dreyer to face Miguel Vargas, who has like this 1200 OPS against lefties, and that stalls out the process of like getting this lefty in who could put this thing down before you have runners on base. I still think they're probably a little slow as far as like bringing Dreyer out for like Andrew Benintendi, but Benintendi's done some reverse splits in the past, and it kind of fudges things. But by the time like Dreyer like is coming in, like the game is already on fire, and Colson's kind of able to jump on him. So like, but Colson's had reverse splits as well. So like the attacking the top of their order, even without Murakami, just presents like these weird complications that teams don't have like easy ways to deal with. And I think that just got like, even if they're banged up a little bit, even if their pitching staff is not at full health, like you're seeing the same problems that the Tigers can't really figure out for how to approach them late in games, like happened to the Braves and Dodgers, and that's getting hit home. So I don't think it's necessarily like caught them by surprise, other than like this whole season's catching everyone by surprise in the aggregate. But game to game, I think it's kind of established what these guys can do, and they're doing it repeatedly.
Well, one of the guys, maybe it's not a surprise, Jim, but maybe someone we haven't been talking about a whole lot, and I'm wondering, are we overlooking Chase Meidroth? In the sense of like, are we underestimating the impact that he has? We know that he's a good leader. He's vocal. He's one of the first guys to run on the field when there's a big moment or there's a walk-off win. But when you look at Meidroth before Sunday's game, he's already at 1.5 WAR. And in his last 30 games, it's 782 OPS with a 355 on base percentage, which that's a huge blessing as well. And currently he's playing like a top 5 second baseman in the American League. His weighted runs created plus is over 100. Are we just overlooking Chase Meidroth because everybody has been excelling so much that we just run out of time and we don't talk about, hey, Meidroth's been pretty good too?
In a sense, yeah. It's kind of like the White Sox are flooding the zone, but with good stuff. Not the way you normally hear that phrase used.
Yeah.
Hard to keep track of all the surprising positive developments. Like, I guess attention you might use on Meidroth is instead of going to Tristan Peters because he's even more random and solving even greater position of need. So I think like you're seeing some of the players who may not produce highlight reel or jaw-dropping physical feats, the way that Montgomery can, or the way like Antonacci gets weird. He's among the quieter producers the White Sox have, but I think I would say me personally, or maybe Sox Machine stance would be probably more pro Meidroth than other, maybe like the aggregate online chatter, just because when Antonacci was going off in spring training, people couldn't wait for him, or I should say, like they were saying, "Oh, Meidroth's feeling the heat. Only a matter of time until Antonacci takes over Meidroth's spot." And I was thinking, like, no, there's room for both, whether they're a great platoon, the grind set twins, as James has called them, or injury happens, including Meidroth could get one of them could get hurt. Like, yeah, as somebody who's advocated for, your catchphrase is ball and air. Mine is more bats than spots. Just don't worry about blocking people until it actually happens, until you actually have somebody who's just raking in AAA and has no reason to be there and can't crack the roster. Like even Jacob Gonzalez, like he found a way on. So like there are always, at least the White Sox, like never worry about having too many bats or never worry about who's going to get sent down or DFA'd. Like, look at Andrew Benintendi. Everybody want to get rid of him, and now he's been fine / good, filling in for Murakami. He stepped up. So to the extent that like Meidroth's days, or a lot of people were like numbering Meidroth's days based on the way Antonacci had the World Baseball Classic and spring training showcase. I think we've been of the sense of like, he serves a purpose. Like he's a good, like cog infielder, can work at the top of the lineup against lefties, can serve other purposes lower in the lineup against righties, knows where the ball is supposed to go, fundamentally sound, good base runner. My attitude towards a player like him is if he's your worst infielder, you're in great shape. Like he's like the perfect worst infielder, because he's going to be doing things that are right and his production offensively will be gravy. And I think you're seeing that now, except like given that the catcher's been a black hole and there have been some, handedness issues in the lineup, like his production is even more felt because the White Sox, during the times they've been trying to get, figure out filling in for Murakami or when Montgomery's back has been flaring up, they've tried to find that one extra bat and he stepped up to be that one extra bat at times. And you feel that. So I think he's in a good spot where, his contributions are being recognized, but he's also like, doesn't have to be much more different than the guy he's always been, which is a good defender at second base, but it can also play some shortstop and gets on base, works counts, puts the ball in play when you have other guys who strike out maybe too much to balance that out, and it all works out pretty well.
Yeah, Meidroth for position players currently ranks 5th when it comes to WAR on Fangraphs. The White Sox already have 4 players that have accumulated 2 WAR or better. The last 3 seasons, 2023 to 2025, only 2 position players. Colson Montgomery last year, Luis Robert 2023. So the White Sox are getting far, far more production out of their position players. And yeah, there's only so much time on a podcast. We don't want to make this a 3-hour college lecture, but we can because there's so many positive things to talk about when it comes to this White Sox offense. And I just wanted to give Chase Meidroth a little love. He was outstanding this week too, defensively. He made some really big plays, especially against the Dodgers on Sunday. Let's talk about one dour or sour topic. James Seranthony Dominguez. This is too Alex Colomé for me, man. Like, I felt Will Venable called it right. He had Grant Taylor facing the top of the order because it was coming up in the 7th and 8th inning. So Taylor faces the top and the middle of the order. Taylor wasn't perfect. He allowed a run in each of those innings, but the White Sox are up 3. Seranthony Dominguez wants to close. He wants those saves, baby. It's the bottom of the order. This should be an easy runway. Why so much turbulence for Seranthony Dominguez? Walks the leadoff hitter on 4 straight pitches, and Freddie Freeman's got a chance to hit the go-ahead home run before Dominguez strikes him out. Dominguez still gets the save, but is this what causes, I don't want to say friction, let's call it hesitation right now from White Sox coaching staff to give Dominguez every save opportunity in the 9th inning?
I mean, the control outages have been part of it, certainly. It feels like it takes them some time to get going or to lock in command-wise in a lot of his outings. But I think that's certainly part of it. I would say that, especially with his career history where he's been a guy with significant platoon splits, obviously they bought into the idea that his splitter would be a neutralizer in that aspect, which is fairly new to his arsenal, kind of developed last year. I still think they'd run into the fundamental thing for a coaching staff that cares so much about handedness in their strategy. They would be encountering the fact that, we have better leverage options for lefties when they come about and they're in the heart of the order. Like Grant Taylor, hasn't looked good in his last couple outings, at least not up to his Grant Taylor standards, but is phenomenal against lefties. To the degree it'd be unfair to call it reverse splits because he's good against right-handers. He's a leverage reliever against right-handers, but the 4-seam curveball, it's so vertical, he's so cut right that there's not even the normal arm side out. It really plays platoon neutral, on top of the fact that Newcomb's been great and Brian Hudson's been this revelation, and they're both left-handed, and they're kind of both have this traditional wide left-handed angle where you look at that and think even if the results are a little bit more neutral, that should play against a left-hander, and certainly analyzing swing pass, they probably find left-handers where that looks like the best option based on pitch shapes or whatever fancy stuff. So I think they would still run into that, and Seranthony obviously hasn't been buttoned up enough to where that's even kind of a real question of whether this is a better option to it. So I feel like they'd run into that in some way. I wonder is there ways to get him working more, even if it's not, even if not ramming him into the 9th inning more often? It's just that he's in terms of raw, and this can happen to closers, but usually not the closers of winning teams. But he's well behind Hudson, Taylor, and Newcomb in innings, and he hasn't been on the IL at any point. Like he's close to like 10 behind some of those guys, and obviously Taylor and Newcomb have more multi-inning potential, but it just seems like they run out of opportunities to use him in some way, or run out of obvious lanes. And if anything, opening even further up in the closer lane, there are possibilities to get him just like more regularly active, because he regularly comes in and just looks like someone who hasn't pitched in 3 or 4 days. And it like as not to give him excuses for him, but like it's almost like not until that Freddie Freeman at bat that you just see him like landing the backdoor sweeper that he wants to hit to start out at bat to get ahead of people, or just commanding his fastball well. It started to come together in bits and pieces. And, obviously it's his job, especially someone who got like $10 million a year, who got anointed to the closer and obviously wants to be the closer. And I think the way I know it was delicate to present it in an article, because like I thought he'd be lying to you if he didn't notice that he's not being used as a normal closer, and that wasn't a surprise. Like, call it what it is. And also like he reiterated, like, I'm happy the team is winning, I'm willing to do whatever they want, it's ultimately their call. And has this great reputation of being like a very team first guy, and everyone's lathering praise on him. And there could be a little bit of like praise him for being a good soldier before he has an opportunity to be a bad soldier element to it, but like everyone is talking up about how he handled it. So like I feel like that it wasn't like him like acting out in some way to note that like difference in his usage. But I wonder if like there's a way to get him like working to the mix a bit more proactively, and just in terms of like it's almost like the closer who doesn't get to work on a bad team where he can go days without being used. But now it's a situation where it's just like, hey, if we run into a pocket with a lefty at all, we have like we prefer using our 3 other leverage guys, and like that way like Seranthony just stays in this weird space where he just doesn't work as often, and it's hard to find him like either the perfect ninth inning opportunity or the perfect leverage opportunity. Some of that's on him. If you don't like it, pitch better. But it seems like this is an important piece just in terms of like looking at your bullpen, even if it's not about like making him the traditional closer and making him happy to get 40 saves. You need him to be right there with the other 3 in terms of importance and reliability. And how do we get him there, rather than talking about like what he isn't or what he hasn't done yet this season. I'm a little skeptical that he's ever going to get to like all-star closer level production in a way that like is pushing these other like guys who are proven to be really good against lefties out of those opportunities. But I feel like Seranthony Dominguez has been a good, useful reliever on playoff teams for years now, and there's got to be some path to getting him there and making him feel like more consistent than he's been so far.
All right, so it sounds like a to-do project for the White Sox that James is giving them. Indirectly figure out to pitch Seranthony Dominguez more so he can get out of this rut, because I thought he had a clean runway today and he made it a bumpy ride, but still landed the plane. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, even though it does feel very Alex Colomé. Colomé still racked up saves for the White Sox, and they still won games.
I mean, it seems very Alex Colomé to like blood. Not be able to get Alex Freeland out, but then you get Pages and strike out Freddie Freeman on his route to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, that felt very like Colomé coded.
The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's 1 daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing, they're easy to toss in my bag on the go, plus they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA and FSA, eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Quickly, here's some White Sox news and some positive White Sox news. Caleb Bonemer has been promoted to the Birmingham Barons. Jim, this feels about time, right?
Yeah, I would say if it feels a little bit early, it's because the strikeout rate is still a little bit elevated, and there are some games where they clump up on them to keep it aloft. But I think overall it's trending downwards. The walks have started to replace the strikeouts, which reflects, less chasing. So yeah, it's not, if it's early, it's only a little bit. And he seems like the kind of hitter who's sturdy enough to figure it out either way. So yeah, it's given the power he was hitting for at Winston-Salem, looking forward to seeing how that translates to the Southern League. That should be very informative. And if the homers keep coming the way they were with Winston-Salem, that'll be something.
Yeah, another puzzle piece for the White Sox that everybody tries to figure out. Where's Rock Chalowski going to play? Let's not forget about Caleb Bonemer, who continues to rake. So very exciting news. Also exciting news, Noah Schultz and Kyle Teel are not flying with the White Sox to New York. Instead, James, it sounds like they are heading to Charlotte. What's the latest with Schultz and Teel?
Yeah, they are. Teel has been running the bases and hitting on the field and catching in full gear and full squats for a bit now. And Schultz had a bullpen. God, was it Saturday or Sunday? Either way, it went fine. He felt good after it. I talked to him a little bit Sunday morning, and I felt like almost a testament to how he's feeling. That he was just talking about like the work he did on a slider, like the fact that the knee wasn't bothering him was a little bit secondary. He did say like it is something that he has to be like conscious of going forward, and I think that's only fair given that it's cropped up in multiple seasons. But at least for now, and you're trying to figure out like what's the future of this rotation slot. Yeah, like watching Hagen Smith every week has some of its feel, but can they stave off making a larger call on that by just like getting through a bullpen day, and then like Noah Schultz gets a rehab assignment, or how many outings does he need? Ultimately comes like a bigger question than that. Like, I'm trying to look up when's the last time he threw. Would be May 24th, and that's legitimately 3 weeks since his last full-length start. Does that need 2 rehab starts? I guess we'll see. If you get him up to 3-4 innings, do you feel like you can mostly kind of bulk boy it from there? I think they're kind of certainly in a squeeze at this point, but if he's feeling well and the stuff looks good and he's showing like the 2 sliders that he's working on, I certainly think like Noah Schultz feels like a more realistic consideration than trying to make it feel like David Sandlin or Hagen Smith are ready when you kind of see them working through issues that aren't disqualifying, but certainly feel like guys who have not yet graduated as AAA starters to a degree.
And Kyle Teel hasn't played in a game since the World Baseball Classic, so let's all be patient
like a week
on how
for
he
him
does with this rehab.
Wouldn't be crazy. I think that's where he was at a little bit last time. You want to see him like catch back-to-back games and be fine. So if it's a week or 10 days build up to that wouldn't be out of line.
Well, Cleveland is next week for the White Sox at home, so that would be a good target for Kyle Teel, as long as that knee holds up. Also, if you notice on social media, Munetaka Murakami, podcast listeners, is jogging. I wouldn't say it's a full sprint. Maybe he's at 50%, but he's starting to move. So some good signs for the White Sox in the injury front, which only adds to the excitement of a 38-32 team. For the White Sox, they head to New York as they flew to New York on Sunday night from Chicago shortly after their win against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Monday is an off day as they get ready to face the New York Yankees. And the scene in New York, I am sure you have seen it on television news and in social media, is absolutely crazy as the New York Knicks won their first NBA title in 53 years. So there's a lot of energy in that city right now. And for the Yankees, they're back in first place in the American League East. They are 43-27 this year. They're just a game ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays. At home this year, the Yankees are 19-12. They've won their last 2 games. They are 7-3 in their last 10. Your pitching probables for this series, each of these games is at 6:05 p.m. Central Time. On Tuesday, great pitching matchup. It's the Dart. Davis Martin for the White Sox against Gerrit Cole. Wednesday, it is Anthony Kay against old friend Carlos Rodon. And on Thursday, we'll see if Sean Burke can bounce back. He'll be going up against Ryan Weathers. I also got a chance to chat with Len Casper and Connor McKnight on Sunday. I want to give a cap tip to ESPN 1000 and the White Sox radio team. Len invited me up to the radio booth as my father-in-law, Roy, which I mentioned a few times on this podcast, has been dealing with cancer. Thank you to everyone that has reached out and sent your positive thoughts and your prayers for Roy's recovery. His prostate surgery was a success. He does not need further treatment, and he felt strong enough to finally go to a White Sox game. He's been a White Sox fan since 1959, so it's very exciting. Of course, next week is Father's Day, so we spoiled him. We took him to the 300 level. Len invited him up to the radio booth, and he got a chance to take some pictures and take in the first inning from the radio booth. So thank you, Len and Connor. That means a great deal to me. But Jim, Len was telling me they have to fly in on Sunday because of the hysteria with the Knicks. And I'm not saying you're our New York expert, but for somebody who lived in Albany for years and visited New York City, the parade, Jim, for the Knicks is on Thursday, and that's getaway day for the White Sox, even though it's a night game. So there could be a lot of distractions for everybody involved, or at least trying to get to the Bronx from their Midtown hotel for these games. So it'll be interesting to see in how the White Sox players react for this road series with everything that's going on in New York City.
Yeah, it's basically the Bears in Chicago, like times 3 or 4 when it comes to the population.
Okay.
Just in terms of the gravitational pull they have when things are going well. The Nets don't really matter. The Nets do not divide the attention. It's always been about the Knicks. So it's not a surprise that things have you have to plan around just the amount of bodies that are going to be out there, that are constantly out there. I was not necessarily rooting for the Knicks, just old habits die hard of just not wanting to see good things happen to them. But it is, when you see just the different kinds of celebrations that come out in different neighborhoods, people making their own fun, and not the property destruction, but people having fun. That's always heartwarming, I would say at this point. That's kind of what I took away from it. Like Knicks, but people smiling and bringing their own flavor to it. Thumbs up.
For this series, Tuesday night, as I mentioned, a fantastic pitching matchup with Gerrit Cole for the Yankees and Davis Martin for the White Sox. James Martin looked very strong against the Atlanta Braves. 6 scoreless innings. He mentioned in his postgame that extra time off really helped him. He's going to be on 6 days rest for this start. Is it just is that simple that moving forward, whatever extra days the White Sox can buy Davis Martin, that's going to be the right move to make sure that he continues to be this strong?
I don't know if he would endorse that. I think it's certainly something that they want to address when it comes up. I was kind of asking around the other day about whether if there's any element of maybe extra suspicion that this team is going to be needing to keep their starters fresh through October, not just to October, that weighs in. And they kind of downplayed it, but saying like they got to be conscious of like the fact that like they don't have many guys who have pitched more than like 150 innings in a season before. Like they would already be on the watch for opportunities to get extra days. And I don't think that's like solely to Davis Martin, but Martin certainly spoke about it in a way that grabs your attention and saying that, acknowledging that he felt like he was just physically exhausted in the Twins series. I mean, there's no way to quibble really with 6 shutout innings against the Braves offense with no walks and 6 strikeouts. At the same time, I didn't think it was like the best stuff or like the crispest Martin outing of the season. I feel like he got by in like Davis Martin fashion. There's like a line out with the bases loaded and stuff like that. So I think it's certainly something to watch for with him, and certainly something they could turn to again for somebody who I don't think he hasn't hit, like, I think 144 is around his max for the season. He's done that a few times, and I think that certainly applies to like Sean Burke as well, and more than applies to Noah Schultz or whoever else is in the younger part of this picture that might mix in. Anthony Kay is have a bit longer seasons under his belt with Japan, but hasn't pitched like all the way through October before. God, I can't believe I'm considering how do they keep Anthony Kay, innings in a good place for late October, but here we are, considering that. So yeah, I think that's going to be something you'd see turn to a lot. It does seem like it's going to be a bit more ad hoc, like responding to like, this guy looks like he's worn down, or he's, even saying something. Mostly the takeaway I got from starting pitchers is that they'll never say something. They're all wired to try to get themselves through the game in front of them. And like, I think we gotta, not to single out an individual fan, but I may have been making fun of you too, Davis Martin, about like the idea that someone was like, why are they bringing Colson back? Shouldn't they wait until he's like 110%? And that'd be like, well, when he's dead, what do you mean? They'll never be 110% again. They're pro athletes. They play every day. They're constantly playing through soreness. It would be very easy if it was a question of, if you feel something, you sit. Like, they're constantly feeling something. Davis even joked, like, sometimes you throw a pitch and feel something and you don't feel it again for 4 months. Like, it just doesn't work this way, where it's like they're ignoring this obvious thing that they should give into. So it's always a very difficult thing to pin down, but they're very aware. I think you should anticipate other points of the season where they're going to do this, or look for extra rest for guys beyond Martin. What it only like slams home is the idea that they need more depth, because right now they're literally trying to figure out how long they can stave off trying to find a fifth starter, let alone like how to find easy ways to rest their 5 starters. So I think that plays into and wondering, like, man, what do they do when Drew Thorpe gets back, or if David Sandlin looks like he's ready for a new turn in rotation. I think that depth will be pretty easy to find. As much as we never truly find more bats and spots, that's doubly true for the pitching staff, where there'll be plenty of opportunities to look for extra rest. Like, if only they could have the blessing of having 6 starters or having a spot starter they feel good about piping in there so that they can give guys a blow. They'll be hunting for that probably at the trade deadline, in addition to just looking for opportunities to do it, with your farm system depth.
For the 6th time of this podcast, yes, we know the White Sox need to trade for pitching.
In a good way, in the way where you need to, because the season matters.
Yes, in a very good way. Jim, old friend alert, White Sox against Carlos Rodon. This should be a fun matchup.
Yeah. He looks like he's close to what he was. He's just walking more guys than usual. I think that's where the White Sox and this new patient game plan that they have of having an idea what they're going to do and a better idea of what it's supposed to look like when they come into the zone and not chasing so much. If Rodon is walking, a batter every other inning and pitches pile up, perhaps they can use it against them. But also, like, Rodon is a lefty and the White Sox are still trying to figure out their best lineup against them. So good test for the right-handed bats to come in, and also like the left-handed bats, like the ones who have to bat, the ones who had to, like Jacob Gonzalez having to bat against Chris Sale. Like, yeah. I think that's what you're going to see here in terms of same thing of just good test for the righties, good test for some lefties who might get a tough assignment. And, I wonder how much the game plan is just trying to wait them out or extended bats to for somebody else to knock them down.
The White Sox will be facing 3 straight left-handed starters later this week in Rodon, Weathers, and Tarek Skubal on Friday. Huge thank you to our Sox Machine subscribers. We will be sending James next weekend to Detroit to cover that series between the White Sox and the Tigers. With Skubal coming back, he was on 80 pitches as the Tigers lost to the Guardians in that start, but Skubal was hitting 100 miles an hour. So it seems like he is close to full strength, and we'll see if they push the pitch limit. But something to watch this week is how do the White Sox fare against these 3 left-handed starters. Before we wrap up this podcast quickly, we'll take a look around Major League Baseball and what is catching our attention. I'll start, gentlemen. The Athletics had their Las Vegas week. They played 6 games. In those 6 games against the Brewers and Rockies, 35 home runs were hit. A combined 102 runs were scored. Do the math. That is an average of 17 runs combined in each of these games. The Rockies scored 23 against the Athletics on Sunday. So if that is the foreshadowing of what it's going to be like for The Athletics, playing games in Las Vegas. Major League Baseball may have accidentally found their new Coors Field situation.
Mexico City.
Mexico City. That's a good point, Jim. In the near future. So that's what caught my attention. The ball flies in Las Vegas. Jim, what's catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
Jacob Misiorowski. I mean, that's kind of, we haven't talked about him, so everybody else is talking about him. We haven't, but 15 strikeouts over 9 innings on 95 pitches.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his game log now. That opening day start he had against the White Sox, where the White Sox looked overmatched, and you're thinking like, that's how terrible this White Sox offense is going to be. Now that's his 9th most effective start of the season out of 14. I thought last year that the league was too cute, giving him an all-star appearance and trying to make like Paul Skeens happen again when he wasn't Paul Skeens, and like, now he looks like Paul Skeens are better than Paul Skeens. Like, just, it's pretty incredible, like how he's meeting all the superlatives and then some. Also looking at the Brewers, Andrew Vaughn, did you see what he's hitting?
No.
Had a down day today, so let me update his numbers here. It is 354, 431, and 531. Good news is it's healthy for the White Sox that nobody cares. Like, you're not hearing it. So ultimately it's good, like that the White Sox, like, it doesn't resonate the way it did last year. Also just, it's heavily, like, he's hitting 500 against lefties. So like, he's in an ideal situation with the Brewers, and it's working out for him, and things are working out the White Sox. So I think, another sign that the White Sox have advanced to a healthier organization, like we talked about with Curtis Mead, is that players leave, they succeed elsewhere, and it's not like incredibly damning that it didn't happen with the White Sox. More like, that's a shame, or kind of unfortunate, but good for him. And the White Sox have their own things to look forward to as well.
It's funny with the Brewers, they traded Freddie Peralta, and they have a better ace. James, what's catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
I mean, I've been curious about the Cardinals because they feel like NL White Sox in terms of team. Both externally and probably organizationally had like no notion of like we're competing this year. Like, doing their prospect list, like there was just so much volume because they didn't have like,
and you did that on Fangraphs,
right? Like they didn't have like the Twins level fire sale where they like traded half the team all at once, but they really made like so many trades. Like there was just half their farm system was just all trade acquisitions, big trades, small trades, weird trades, all shapes and sizes. And so you felt like there's supposed to be like a depth in there's simultaneously a depth to their farm system, but wasn't supposed to be the depth of their major league roster to sustain this. And like they're kind of weird White Sox analogs. Like Jordan Walker's a little Colson Montgomery coded, and like this top prospect who like went to this down period. His was longer than Colson's, and his current height is probably, at least offensively, a little higher than Colson's. So Colson has these god tier defensive metrics that kind of put his value up right up along. Like Alec Burleson feels very like Miguel Vargas a little to them, and they're facing similar questions. Like their pitching's clearly light to sustain themselves to stay in this race if they really want to, and they're facing much more of a real legit powerhouse with the Brewers at the top of that division that probably shooting for the division title feels a bit more unrealistic to them, but they have a still kind of decision to make of like, do we really want to push forward for the pitching that we clearly need, both rotation and bullpen wise, to contend, certainly what we get if this was like a real process of trying to contend, or do we rely on just our internal depth that certainly has options, but maybe not the most ready ones, and putting them in the test down the stretch? Is that how they want to handle it? They're kind of interesting to me. I would say that if I was keeping this White Sox focused, I think I want to credit Scott Merkin at MLB.com. They've carved out the lane of focusing on the Mike Vasilwan as being like the big cultural talisman that's producing the White Sox offensive success. So like we should stick at our own territory. That's why I think I'm focusing much more on the White Sox adapting Clarence Carter's body 1986 hit "Strokin" as their Hell Run celebration song as the real secret to their offensive success. sexually provocative 80s blues music, I think, is the real secret sauce. But he has it's different. It's an interfaith council in kind of the mojo that the White Sox are courting, and I think there's room for people to embrace multiple theories. So that's not necessarily around baseball, but more rattling around my head, sort of off, not serious analysis that I have to offer.
Well, I guess gonna have to add that to the Spotify playlist. This is we're powering the White Sox to victory.
If the kids are around, maybe wait till they go to bed. But other than that,
okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, let us know in the comment section what's keeping your guys' attention around Major League Baseball. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. We've been posting a lot of video content on our YouTube channel. A lot more of you have been discovering Sox Machine through our YouTube channel, so thank you so much for watching our videos there. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, definitely do so you're notified of our upcoming videos. That's where we're doing a lot of our interviews with White Sox personnel and players. We're at youtube.com/Sox Machine. We're on social media on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at Sox Machine_Josh. When it comes to our subscriptions, Jim, this is getting more expensive for people who have not taken advantage of the first month discount. Where are we now?
We are all the way to 54 cents. However, another win gets it to 55. So buy low.
Yes. Yes, the arrow, it's just going to continue to rise, folks. If you heard our excitement at the beginning part of this podcast. So when you sign up, your first month, 54 cents. After that, $5 a month. We also have additional tiers of support. Maybe you're already an existing subscriber, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me lately with the MLB draft content and enjoying that, and they're so glad that they have upgraded as far as their subscription. If you heard Jim earlier in the show, help us out with subscriptions. If you want to increase your subscription, you can do so as well. We have some spots open in our Veterans Committee, which gets you into the group chat. You can text Jim and James directly with your questions about the White Sox. Very handy when James is at the stadium and shares with us as far as pictures and videos and gives us the news before he publishes it. So if that's of interest to you, you can acquire within. Again, go to soxmachine.com/products to sign up today.
Or when I can't publish it.
The Sox Machine, or when you can't publish it. Yes. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of soxmachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside James Fegan and Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.
The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing, they're easy to toss in my bag on the go, plus they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA and FSA, eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.